part too by taking simple steps to make your home more energy efficient. Because together, we have the power to make a difference.
This message brought to you by Cumberland Electric Membership Corporation.
Hello, friends. This is Scotty Inman. Stay tuned to WSGI AM 1100 for the best in Southern gospel, bluegrass gospel, and country gospel all day, every day.
One street over there's a life I could have known, one beyond my wildest dreams. Maybe that road could have carried me to streets of gold, but things aren't always as they seem. Looking back on all the chances that I missed, some I held, some slipped away. One street over where my memories exist, I wonder what would change, I really couldn't say. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known, that would have kept me from the one I had today. Times gone by, I've traded like dirt into clay. I thought my memories would end. One street over's now 1,000 miles away. When I close my eyes, I'm back to where I've been. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known, that would have kept me from the one I had today.
Hello, good morning. This is 1100 WSG. I'm Utah LaVern, and yes, this is one street over. A chance to know what's going on one street over from where you living. We're living right in Robertson County, as Mayor Vogel likes to say. Everything's good because I get to live and work in Robertson County. I look forward to catching up with Mayor Vogel. I didn't get to talk to him last month because I was in Mexico with my husband for our mission trip. And I have been I've had this kind of in my pocket that I wanted to have you come in and us talk about our mission trip to Mexico because it's just so special. And so my husband, Mark Vivio, is in here, and I've been kind of, hi. And I forget, you've got a loud voice like me, so we may have to shut that door. It's a little stuffy in the studio, and so I said, we'll open the door, and we'll try not to be too loud because our voices carry across mine usually, but yours is almost carries more than mine. You're kind of loud.
No, yours goes through a concrete wall.
No, but typically we would have Jack Martin come in today. It's the second Friday, and so Jack Martin from the Greenbridge Church of Christ, but he had something going today and was unable to come. So I reached out, Dr. David Evans. I've been trying to get Dr. Evans in here. He was unavailable, and then I reached out to Lee Marie yesterday afternoon and said, hey, you got anybody that needs to come in? Now, I think Brother T may slide in here for about 10 minutes to promote something, but she tried to get a hold of me late. And I just remind people, we get up at 4 a.m., so we go to bed early. We turn our phones off. But she got a little worried about us. I appreciate you worrying about me, sweet friend. But we were sound asleep by that time.
And we turn our phones off.
Yeah, we do. We have to. Otherwise we get, we can't get any sleep.
Send all these notifications. They think old people are gullible.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't even want to tell and we may talk a little bit about that and what happened with me. We're going to talk just about several things that I want to cover this morning. And there's specific reasons behind it. I do want a programming note. Just remember that we had been sharing this originating from my Facebook page, which means if you follow me, you would get a notification. It's not working that way anymore. So we can't, for some reason, it technologically, we're not able to share it originating from my page. So it means that you need to follow WSGI. I share the WSGI page, and it's live on my page. And so if you know to go to my social media page, you'll see it there. And that's why I tell everybody, if you want to see a show, they're all archived at WSGI. But it's limiting our digital social media audience by not originating on our page. So we just got to
WSGI give a notification that the show
if
started.
if you follow them.
Follow.
So
Okay.
you need to follow. That's what my point is. Follow WSGI so you get the notifications. If you're just following me, you're not going to get the notifications. So follow WSGI. But you figure I have 5,000 followers. So I would like to get it. If somebody in the social media world can tell me, because what I would love to do is to take the original feed that SGI is doing, so they get that, bounce, and somehow put it to where it's like a live feed on my page as well, so my followers get notified. Does that make sense? So I don't know. And I don't know. And y'all can tell me, those of you who follow my page, do you get notified if I just share something? I don't think so. I think I have to go live for you to get a notification. So I'm trying to figure out all the nuances of social media, because this is something, too, we're doing in our audio video class at Greenbrier. Our goal is to do a live stream. And we're trying to work out all the details of that. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But just like I'm getting all kinds of things right now from people that are seeing, we went for a walk this morning. We get up and go, and I pray we're not disturbing our neighbors. We have a dog. We have a neighbor at the top of the hill that's like a horse. If you've not met Zeke, he is our Great Dane, who he's just hysterical. He's just a nut, and he's just all over the place. And so there's one of our neighbors at the top of the hill. They have I guess they have something that lets them know when somebody comes in their driveway. Well, you were taking early morning walks before I started getting into it, and you said that our neighbor said that dog was setting off their notifications because he would go up in their driveway. I mean, he wouldn't go very far, but just enough to notify them.
He was going all the way up to the house because he knows that they have a.
Well, see, you can't let that happen.
No, I didn't know that it was setting off their own.
Okay, so we were real careful to try to keep him out of their driveway and all that. And we try to really definitely keep him out of the neighbors' yards and stuff, because when we're walking really early, we don't want to. We can't leash him. Okay, let's just tell what happened here, because
her infinite wisdom trying to leash this monster.
When you're walking early in the morning, you don't have to worry about him getting into anything because nobody's up. And I mean, we're talking in the 4:00 a.m. hour, guys, is when we're walking at different times, or 5 a.m. But right now, 4 a.m. And so we don't worry about leashing him then, but we were walking during the summer, like middle of the day or some odd time when people were out. Yeah. And because he's such a big dog, if a little dog's out there, he could hurt him. And so, and he's super friendly, but he's just too, don't do that. That's making the microphones rattle. He's just a lot. And he comes running at you. You're like, ah, it's a little terrifying. So I said, we cannot go on a walk with the dogs if we do not leash them to make sure they're not getting up in the yards and all that kind of stuff, and trying to be a good neighbor. Mm-hmm. So we're walking, and if we had gone up the road and we come back, because we like to walk up that hill because it's a good workout going up that hill. That's because we live down in the valley. So we come up, we're coming back, and right in front of the old historic home that the Whites used to own, that, the old homestead there, that's just really cool historic house, right in front of that house, something happened, and the dogs got us tangled up and made him fall, and then he fell into me. And I mean, we're two 60-year-old people sprawled out in the middle of the road, and he fell hard. I fell hard and hit my head. And he was like, "Are you okay?" I said, "I think I am. I don't know." We fell hard.
We laid there for a while. Just you know how you check. You got to do a body check, before you start moving. It's like.
And then all of a sudden I said to him, we better get up before the neighbors call an ambulance and say, there's these two senior citizens laying in the middle of the road.
No idea what happened.
It was so funny. But anyway, so we, when we take our our animals out for a walk in the middle of the night. We're really hoping if any of our neighbors, if it's disturbing you, please just let us know and we will fix that.
We'll not leash him, but
we'll figure something out. Maybe hang on to his collar when he's
while
near your
we're
drive.
going
I
near
don't think
your-
he's setting their notifications off now. I would hate to be waking them up in the 4 o'clock hour if they're not early birds. I mean, if you're an early person, it doesn't really matter, and we are, so.
Yeah, one of our neighbors is,
Yeah, we see one of them pulling out to go to
backing up.
work. Yeah, and I imagine they're a commuter somewhere. Some people have an hour commute to work. It's crazy. I'm very thankful I no longer do. Mark's very thankful he no longer does. But we love working in Robertson County, but our entire careers have always been, just all over the place. And, that's what I talk a lot about, how that this show is about knowing what's going on locally, because we were guilty of that. We were living in Robertson County but didn't know anything about the county because our lives, our work lives, our church, our school was all up in all up in Davidson County. So nonetheless, we're the Vivios. Hi. This is my other half. I'm not going to say better half because we're both awesome.
she's my better
We're both,
three-quarter.
yeah. We're both awesome. But anyway, we have been here in Robertson County since 1992. The twins were a year old. We still have some of the old folks around because we had the twins. We had twin boys right out of the gate. And again, they were a year old when we moved here, and he would walk around town and he would take them in and carry them like 6-packs with their straps on their overalls, and they'd just giggle. And so we've kind of been an oddity ever since we got here, but we love Robertson County. It's great. It's a great county. So wouldn't you say so?
I would say so.
So anyway, we've got several things we're going to talk about. Like I said, we went to Mexico. We do mission work in Mexico. And
she's been doing it for a long time.
I started going, and again, we've got several other things for the weekend we're going to talk about. We got Recovery Fest tomorrow. We'll talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about my sweet friends, the Be the Light, the Janie Grace Moss Memorial Run, fun run that's coming up August 23rd. You can still get in on that. Just an incredible story, just breathtaking story. But all these things we're going to talk about. But I want to start because I've got it in the heading. We're going to talk about the mission trip to Mexico. If you have never gotten involved in service work or mission work, please do it. You don't know what you're missing. I have got so many friends that not only have they never ventured out into mission work per se, to where you get outside your comfort zone. I would say mission work is where you step outside your comfort zone. Honestly and truthfully, I consider being in the schools a mission because even though I started out as a teaching major and it was something I aspired to do as a young person, I've been in broadcasting for so long. The first time I stepped into that classroom, I was terrified, man. That was outside my comfort zone. And and I just think we need people with some life experience influencing our kids. And so I really consider it a mission, and I know you do as well. And so we have that aspect and so many things that you can do locally. You can work with Isaiah House. You can work with CASA. You can work with Open Door. You can work with United Way can point you to all kinds of Hope Ministries. There's just tons. Recovery Court, Recovery Fest. All of these things. There's so many wonderful programs you can get in that can be a mission. People who are involved in Celebrate Recovery, that's their mission. That are serving in the capacity and doing leadership and things like that. That's a mission for them. But there's something different about going beyond our borders. Because before I got involved with the work down in Mexico, I had gone with the kids through youth group. We've done intercity work in St. Louis. And it's something you never really got to do because you were a roofing contractor for 20 years and you just couldn't do it because it was always in the summer, your busiest time. And so I would take the kids and go with the youth group. And one time I got to take all 4 boys together, and it was after Katrina. And it was the following year when they were cleaning up houses after Hurricane Katrina. And again, we went with the youth group. It was a small group, but I could take all 4 boys, and it was just amazing. Just having that experience with them, just going and serving. But, and then we did the work camp where we'd go in and paint houses in Nashville and all kinds of things like that we've gotten to do over the years with the kids. That I was able to do over the years with the kids. But whenever I was at the Blaze, I started learning. I mean, I've always been interested in foreign missions. And I felt the call as a kid, as a young kid, felt the call. I've talked a lot about that on the airways, but I turned away from that because of the theology in the Church of Christ that men are the leadership, especially in the 60s when I was feeling the call into the ministry and mission work, and I didn't have a place for me other than just being a preacher's wife, and that just wasn't, what I felt God calling me to. I felt Him calling me to be a minister, to be a leader, to be a missionary, all of that, and it scared me because I was really young, and I can remember to this day feeling, after a couple of weeks of really struggling with it and being a little afraid of it, because it's super close to my parents and I didn't want to leave mom and daddy, and just super, close to my heritage in West Kentucky and all that. Couldn't imagine venturing out beyond that as that age. And I remember after a couple of weeks of just kind of stirring with that as a kiddo, thinking, I'm a girl. I can't do that. I don't have to do that. Is what, when my mind is like, I'm a girl. I don't have to do that. Because, in the theology of the Church of Christ in the 60s, that wasn't a calling.
To do that.
Well, but and that's not a fair statement either, because at that time there were women that were breaking the mold and they were going into ministry and they were doing the work, and they, as wives of preachers, were going in and working just as hard. So it was happening, and if I had pursued that in that capacity, that's what I would have been directed to, and there would have been people, and that's all they knew. I've mentioned so many times that as we went through Daddy's library last year and, collected all his books and cleaned out the farmhouse after Mother passed away, and went through Dad's library, he passed really before he understood what he had access to through the internet. And I believe if he had lived long enough, some of the things that I have learned that I could share with him, he would have been like, oh, wow, okay. Because his knowledge was limited by the library he had access to. And his library was heavily concentrated on Church of Christ theology.
Because that's what he knew.
That's what he knew. And that's not to say he has other books. I mean, he studied other religions. He had a Quran. He had a Book of Mormon. He had, other study books that he wanted to understand why they believe what they believe. And so he would read those things when he had access to them. But he only studied what he had access to. And so I just think if he had lived long enough, I think he would have really been in the same camp as me.
Yeah.
I really do, because he was I always said about Daddy, his pleasure was studying. He loved to study. And I'm getting more in that. I'm taking after him in that regard, because I honestly and truthfully, I love entertainment and I love silliness and I love to laugh and watch movies. I don't have the attention span really for too much of that, but one of my favorite things to do is to sit down and pour over the study. And right now I study archaeological stuff, and
I was digging up the past.
Oh man, I want to go to Pompeii, but I can't always stand it. And to Israel and all these places. I mean, if I could set exactly what I would want to do in the summers, and I want to teach. I've told my administration, my intention is, if the Lord lets me be well enough, I'm setting about 75 as my retirement age. And you've said the same thing, that if we stay well enough, that's our goal, because that would give us enough time in with the district to have a decent retirement. And, I think 75 is the new 65 for retirement.
There you go.
I just can't even, retirement is not something that's ever been in my mindset, because you and I both you're an entrepreneur. And so unless you really make really solid arrangements, your retirement you've got to work it out. And we were at a place, and we did a little bit of that, but your business ended abruptly because you developed a heart problem and had to shut down. And for people who don't really know him, don't know, for about 5 years, it was kind of touch and go. And you had 35 cardioversions, 6 heart ablations, and you're doing great now. But it was a rough journey. He had a failed hip replacement that literally crippled him for a year. And it was when I was at the Blaze. So you've had some real health struggles. It was about a 10-year period, really, but about 5 years with your heart that was really touch and go. And so we had to shut the business down. You had to reinvent yourself, which you did beautifully. You worked at Electrolux for 7 years, maybe?
9 years.
About 9 years. Got your master's while you were there. Were able to, flip that over into working as the safety coordinator for the transportation. And then we realized, as we got to understanding how the CTE classes work, we're able to qualify to be a CTE teacher in criminal justice. And of course, then they recruited me because of my audio video background and my degree. It's just the way God has just outlined our path has just been breathtaking. And so it has helped us to be able to say, we have no desire to retire. We're just getting started in our new teaching careers, and we love it. So our desire is to do this until we're about 75 and work that mission in just being an older influence to help these kiddos see some things that they're not going to see because their parents are so much younger than us. Their grandparents may be in the same age range, but a lot of them don't have connections with their grandparents because there's so much disruption in the homes these days. It's just like when I came back from the Blaze, I had gotten a bigger interest in going beyond the borders of the United States because of what was happening to the Coptic Christians. That was happening just as my time at the Blaze ended, where the Coptic Christians were being massacred because of their faith. And I was like, I don't even understand. And so as I got to digging into that, I just had a heart for and they're Egyptian Christians is what it is. Coptic Christians, they're Egyptian Christians, and man, are they devout. They love Jesus so much, guys. They worship much differently than us. It's very
orthodox, very
old school. The priest, and they have, women on this side, men on this side, and they do it in Coptic and
they do it in Arabic.
They do it in Arabic and Coptic. They're ancient Coptic language, and then in English in a lot of the churches. But nonetheless, when we got back from the Blaze, I had such a passion for them, and Glenn was just starting to go into try to help with that, and I wanted to be there so bad. And I had some local friends that were telling me there's Coptics here in Nashville, and we began an association with them and started. You and I, just like right after the Blaze, we started teaching English second language in the Egyptian community up in Nashville for the newcomers, because what people don't realize, there was a immigration initiative from the first President Bush that said we're getting only the people who can bribe their way into the country. And so they set up an immigration lottery that was accessible to these other countries where, if you wanted to immigrate from Egypt, you had to be Muslim and know how to pull some strings, because the Coptics are terribly persecuted. They're treated, discriminated against. And I don't know if it's gotten better in recent years, but for a long time it was really bad. And so if you were Christian and you wanted to immigrate to America, you couldn't do it. And so they set up, that was one country where they set up this immigration lottery, and you could apply for it. And if you got pulled to immigrate, there was a set time. It wasn't as quick as I heard you say the other day. I'd have to ask one of the families, and Mag could tell us. But it was pretty quick. You had to get your affairs in order and get out if you wanted to go. And you literally packed what you could bring on the plane and arrived in America with just what you had. And they would naturally navigate to one community. And there was a community, Millwood at the time. I can't remember what they call it now. Blue Note now. Yeah, it was whenever the last time we were there. It's an apartment complex. And there's like a series of apartment complexes right over on the Murfreesboro Road, Briley Parkway, that area, Thompson Lane, that are heavy immigrant apartment complexes. And so we got pulled over there by some mutual friends to help teach English to these newcomers. And we have friendships to this day that started there. And I started telling all that to say that for some of those families, we've become kind of the pseudo grandparents to those families, because they had to leave the grandparents back in Egypt. And so those, there's one or two families in particular, those kids look to us like grandparents, because we've been able to stay involved with them, even though we no longer teach the classes. Well, we're seeing the same kind of thing in the schools, that the kids kind of come to us in a grandparently kind of way. And so we really see that as a pull for missions for us. And so I don't know. I highly recommend it.
Latin American kids here.
Yeah, and that too. And that's the thing. You've got a lot of Latin American kids that have left their families in their home countries, and so we're getting that same kind of feel from them that we got from the Egyptian kids that we still have from some of those families. And so that's one of the big appeals to being in the school system right now. Yeah. It's just that I just love it. If you've never done work like that, guys, you just have no idea. You think, well, I don't have time. You're going to give a little bit of your time, and you're going to get back so much that's just going to overwhelm you and bless you in a way you just can't even begin to imagine. Yeah. Wouldn't you say?
Some of these kids have just stolen my heart.
Oh, my gosh. It's just incredible. But anyway, I say all that to say that this journey that we've been on, I'd always done the work with the youth group, the easy mission things that we do. And I don't say easy because it's all hard work. But when you start stepping outside your borders, that's a little different. And so when I came back from the Blaze and we started working in the Egyptian community, Terry Ashley, who is our benevolence minister, I was kind of in between jobs. I was in between jobs because I'd left the Blaze and I didn't have anything else going. I had a little bit of unemployment that I'd never been on unemployment in my life. And I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of figure it out and take unemployment for a few months. And so while I was in that journey, he saw what we were doing in the Egyptian community and asked me if I would come to work at Benevolence. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I just fell in love with that and fell in love with the mission. And then Greg Huffine said, well, we need some help with the mission committee. Can you come in and kind of be our liaison to the church? And I kind of piecemealed an almost full-time gig there for about 7 years at the church. And that's where I became introduced to Baja Missions. And Baja Missions is a mission that got started because of a orphanage down in Mexico called the City of Children in Ensenada. And I don't know, I think it began maybe in the 50s. I'm not really sure.
It's been there a while.
It's been there a long time. But they got to thinking because people would surrender their kids to an orphanage because they couldn't feed them. I remember my one friend, Magdalena, her brothers are preachers in Baja Missions, and she was one of my first dear friends down there. And she told me, she says, when I was a kid and we had nothing, she said, I used to wonder if the rest of the world knew we were here. And I can't imagine that these kids that are living in extraordinary poverty, that don't have food on the table sometimes for days, if they do know that there's a world out there, and do they just not think do they not know we're here? That they're, and anyway. And the obstacle is getting past the control of their leadership so you can get help to them. That's probably one of the biggest problems in missions. When you get into some parts of Africa, I mentioned my friend Solomon that was in the Congo, who was in a refugee camp that I met when I was working at church, who lived in a refugee camp because his village was overthrown, and lived in a refugee camp long enough. He got there in the teens, met his wife, got married. They had 4 kids entirely in this refugee camp, and finally were allowed to immigrate to America. And he came in and asked me to help him with English. But I listened to the stories of people that live outside our borders, and I'm like, what in the world? And people like that are wondering, do they not know we're here? What can we do to help? And you get exposed to that when you step outside your comfort zone, Wouldn't you say, what did you? So I started, when Baja Missions became a thing that we wanted to try to, expand at our church, I was like, yeah, let's go. And so from the very moment the minute you cross the border in Tijuana and you look over on the hills and you see the cardboard shacks that people are living in, you go, man, I'm not in America anymore. And you can find some things that are just as impoverished in the Appalachians and in places in America too, guys. I've not been to those places, but I've heard stories. And then within the inner cities, we got some people living very much like that. Maybe it looks a little better, a little bit neater, but not much. We got to do better. But anyway, I say all that to say, you've been now, I've been down there, I think 12 trips now, but I think I've been going for 9 years, maybe 10. That was my 9th year this past summer. What was your impression when I first asked you, because it was once you started teaching that your summers were free, that you were available to go. And so I mentioned to you once you'd started teaching, I said, would you go? What was your first thoughts about it?
I was nervous.
Okay.
So, I mean, you hear tales of,
Yeah.
the cartel and the police force down there being, and me being, looking the way I am,
You're a big kind of scary guy.
and I teach criminal justice, so I have that kind of persona, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be the first guy
They're
shot.
Be like, take him.
Because I mean that's usually the case. Is you take out that, and it didn't feel like that when I was down there. I mean, it just it's a community. It's a small town like I grew up in. And then that's just kind of the feel, I mean, that there's problems because you drive down the road and the ruts are bigger than the vehicles, and the vehicles are, flying down the road. They don't pay any attention to it. And it's just, you know that there's just good people, and you just go down and try to help those folks,
You just really, the minute that you cross the border, you just say, I don't know, what's everybody so worried about? Did you kind of get that feel?
Well, until you get to one of the checkpoints out in the middle of nowhere, that makes me a little nervous,
Well, and you had the same reaction that our son Jedediah had. You guys kind of have this big, overbearing presence with you. That's one of the reasons why, if I ask anybody about you at Springfield High School, they're like, "Oh, he's such a gentle giant," because you're constantly trying to diffuse that and just be fun and silly with kids, so they don't go, "Mr. Vivio is so big and scary." So you're constantly working to do that. But that persona's there, and then we have our son Jedediah, that the same thing. He's got very much a military kind of presence to him because he was in the Army and was in Afghanistan.
Sergeant in the Army.
And so both of you have had that kind of like, we need to kind of try to, play it, kind of hang back to where we're not so, you didn't want to like wear a military hat and all this kind of stuff and draw attention to yourself. You're trying not to draw attention to yourself.
Fatigues and have,
You're just like, hey, what's up? The same kind of thing that you try to do in school is just be light and fun and that thing. And Jedediah was supposed to go with us this past year, and so we were kind of talking about that in our minds, but then they found out they were having a baby the week before we left, and so they had to postpone their first trip to Mexico with us. But that was okay. That was a hard secret to keep, too, because they had to tell us early on, and they're like, but you can't tell anybody. And we're like, ugh. And so we can tell it now because they announced it on social media last week. We just don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet. I think a boy, but we just, we have lots of boys. But with that said, you were nervous, and a part of it's because you knew that it's kind of hard for you not to stand out.
The media pushes it, too,
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you always hear about the bad. You don't very seldom do stories about the good,
Well, and then we had, this past year, we were super nervous going in. And honestly, it's just because of what everybody was saying, because it had nothing to do with it. We had a terrible tragedy in the community right before we went down. Like 2 weeks before we went down, there was a just young, beautiful girl was murdered by another teen, and just horrible the details of it, and the community was absolutely in mourning, and it was just it was hard, and so to try to go down there, it was just kind of a scary time because everybody was on edge, and so that kind of added to the anxiety. But then we also too, somebody connected with Baja Missions had been murdered last fall, and it had nothing to do with the mission. It had to do with some things he was doing
as a lawyer,
as an attorney. Yeah. That he upset somebody because he was defending somebody that they were challenging in court, and they murdered him. It was a domestic thing. It had nothing to do. Same kind of thing that happens here, but it's like it happens in Mexico, and everybody's like, all this. And so you've just got to number one, trust God. You got to trust God. And I learned that early on because I was one of those when our kids were born. For a long time, I just couldn't let them out of. I'm super paranoid. And God just gave me a peace at some point in their lives. It's like, give them to me, pray over them without ceasing. I got this, period. And so I have to do the same thing when I go to Mexico. And I say all that to say that if you've got some anxiety about stepping outside our borders, get involved first in something missional here. And when you see how much it fills you up and just blesses your soul, you're going to want more. And when you step outside those borders and you go down into some other countries and you see people who are going, does the rest of the world not know we're here? Man, it's going to change your life. It's going to change your life. If I had my way, we would also go to Ukraine. They say we can't go. I mean, we were talking about maybe taking a mission trip. Natasha and Sasha were here. Our mission, the ones that we talk about a lot down there. We support Natasha. Sasha's support comes out of other churches, but Natasha's been ours for a long, long time. And she's just amazing, and her husband's their entire, oh my gosh. But, you know, they were here, and we were talking, and I've got to go see if I can find that video of when they were here. I hope Facebook hadn't deleted it, because, you know, they do that sometimes. But they were here, and we were saying, you know, maybe we can do a mission trip to Ukraine. And then that, just months later, the war started. And so I talked to her. She was here for Regina's graduation in the spring, and I asked her, I said, when do you think we'll be able to come? She says, not for a while, because she said there's no way to get to Kyiv, because they're out of Kyiv, and there's no way to really get there except for like almost a day-long train ride from Poland, you know. And so she says we would be a burden, you know. I mean, at this point, if we were to try to go in there, we wouldn't be a help. And so, nonetheless, I mean, that's a place I'd love to go. I really want to go to Africa, different parts there. You know how much I want to go to the Middle East, and I want to go to Turkey and to Pompeii. I mean, a lot of that's just me wanting to look at stuff, you know, and see it for myself. But there's just so many places that you can be involved in the mission work and the work of Christ being hands and feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how important, let's kind of transition here. How important do you think it is to dealing with life being in service?
Well, it definitely affected us this summer, you know, because I mean, you know, we've had some, you know, personal conflict and, you know,
personal challenges. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, at first it helped us concentrate because, I mean, we knew we were going.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to kind of focus on, you know, I had to look at blueprints. We built a house.
In what, 4 days?
You know, yeah, well, we didn't get it finished. If we had another 2 days, we could have finished it. But
you got the house built. The only thing you didn't get the wall. Like they're going to put
we didn't
water.
finish the drywall. We didn't
Yeah.
get you know, we didn't get any cabinets in. We didn't get any, you know, bunk beds built. We were gonna, you know, try to do that kind of stuff. You know, things that would have made it more convenient.
But describe to them what constitutes a house down there.
Well, we walked up, and on a hillside, where
Beautiful hillside.
they had just knocked out a little flat spot
Mm-hmm.
right next to an old Catholic. It looked like a little monastery, a little place where they buried people.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. Just on this hillside, they just kind of knocked it off with a bulldozer, and we were building a house, which you would consider a house. It was 11'6" by 28 feet. And we were there, and we framed it, we roofed it, we insulated it. We got about half of it drywalled in 3.5 days.
And how many rooms?
3 rooms. It's subdivided.
And what was the overall measurement of the house?
11'6" by 28 feet.
And they got 3 rooms out of that, y'all.
For 5 people that are going to be living in it.
5 people. 3 kids, mom and dad.
Now, you know, there was 3 main of us, me, Frank, and Steve.
Mm-hmm.
We had never worked together before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got there.
And Don Allen. Yeah.
Don Allen. And, you know, so, I mean, we got there. There was a big pile of material sitting at the church. We had to load up on the truck, try to drive up this giant sandy
And that's not
hill.
fair because you and Frank and Don worked together last year, but
Well,
y'all been, and Josh Bell, you know, from church.
We built picnic tables.
That's
and
true. You hadn't
shelves.
built a house together.
You know, that's a little different.
So,
you know?
so yeah, you had some experience together, but still building a house together. This was the first time out of the gate.
And we got there, and you know the concrete slab wasn't level, plumb, or square. So we had to kind of figure out how to build something square on an unsquare platform, and we figured that out. And then we got the walls built. We tried to figure out, you know, because they do things a little differently down there than we do up here.
Just a little.
The windows, you know, and the doors and all the different things. So it took a little time to figure out how to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was just, you know, it was different, you know, trying to, you know, hang drywall on walls that were sloped. And, you know, you usually don't have interior sloped walls. And that took a little bit of time to figure that out, especially when nobody knew what a drywaller's tee was. You know, I got down there, couldn't find one, buy one, borrow one, nothing. So I
Did
ended
they
up,
not have anything like that down there?
no,
Really?
I couldn't
Oh.
find a drywaller's tee, you know, which helps me cut drywall, you know.
Tremendously, yeah.
You don't have to chalk lines. You can, you know, use it to square. And so I ended up using a level, you know, to cut drywall with. And that, you know, kind of took a minute to get used to that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, it's just a lot of little things. And, but yeah, I mean, it definitely took my mind off of what was going on here at home,
Yeah.
you know. So for a week, you know, that was relaxing, and just, you know, you just focus on service of others, you know, and it was just great to see. You know, we called him Big Loco. That was the guy's name that we were building a house for.
Mm-hmm.
He had got that. He had got that nickname because, like, a couple of years ago, they were down there working, and there was a hornet's nest,
Oh, no.
and it kept, you know, bothering everybody. So finally, this kid reaches up, grabs the wasp nest or the hornet's nest, runs it away, and throws it someplace. And everybody just called him Big Loco.
That's crazy. You're Big
crazy.
Loco. You grabbed the hornet's
Yeah,
nest. That's where the
so
name came
That's
from.
where he got the name from. And
So,
but it was his family. He's kind of a deacon minister
at the church there that we
sponsor
help.
and we help out. And so we were building this house for him, you know, because he had been living in, you know, different places ever since. And just in the couple of years that I've been down there, he'd been in 3 or 4 different homes trying to find places that he'd fit in, you know.
and see, and that's the thing, you know, they'll maybe have, you know, multiple families living in one place. And when I say living, I mean, there's some nice homes down there. There's a few nice homes, but for the most, I mean, you see so many people living literally in, maybe there's an old shed that somebody abandoned, and then they take it over, and then they'll expand it with a piece of tin, you know, or a piece of heavy
Plywood.
cardboard or plywood, and they'll just kind of lean things up, and they'll make a makeshift shelter that is nothing more than just a makeshift shelter.
Because they don't
And-
have to worry too much about the weather.
Yeah, they don't have much
Weather
rain.
stays pretty close because
Yeah.
you're right there by the ocean.
Mhm.
You know, the weather's beautiful most of
Oh,
the time.
gorgeous.
You know, so it's not something that they have to worry about getting to, you know, like we do here at 0. Or
Getting out of the rain
where I
and
grew up 30
really-
below, you know, things
Right,
like that. You know,
right. You don't have
to
that.
deal with, you know.
But you want the comfort of a bed.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, there's so many people down there that've probably never really slept on a bed,
on a mattress.
but they've slept
yeah.
on a pallet on the ground. They cook their meals over an open fire. I mean, it's just that life for a lot of people, and they don't know anymore.
They don't know any different.
We have kids that come into this. We have kids in this district in school that are from migrant families, and I say migrant. They, you know, there's a difference. Immigrants are ones who are coming through the process and have applied for citizen. You know, they're applying to immigrate into the country, and I'm very dead set on this. I mean, an immigrant is somebody who comes through the process to immigrate into America. If you just come here, you migrate. You're migrating, and that's okay. I'm going to love you.
Through.
I'm going to love you, and I'm going to tell you you need to get on the legal side of it because you've got to, because it's going to haunt you. And one of the biggest reasons I ran for Congress is because I wanted to help try to fix this, because we've got people who migrate into America. They bring little tiny kids with them, or they have children when they're here, and because of our laws, they can be a migrant, have a child here, and the child is automatically an American citizen. And so you have this child. We had a sweet, sweet girl down in Mexico who that happened to her. Her family had migrated into America. She was born here. She knew nothing but America and was in her teens when her dad just decided to move them back. And man, you talk about hard. That was a hard culture shock to have that transition, to go back to what Mexico has versus what she had grown up with in America. But you have some that want to stay. And my opinion on this is if they've got kids here that because of our laws are citizens because they were born here, or maybe they brought them here when they were just little kids and they don't know anything but America, then make it easier for them to get to a legal status. I've never been a proponent of if an adult migrates here, they should never have a path to citizenship. But I don't think that should be the case for their kids. I think if their kids were brought here without their consent and all they know is America, I don't think you automatically give them citizenship. I think they have to apply for it. But
and do the work.
And apply for it, but give them a pathway.
Yes, a pathway.
If a kid was brought here, give them a pathway to citizenship. And if kids are born to migrant parents, I don't think they should have automatic citizenship. But I think if they stay here and all they know is America, give them a pathway. But the ones who consciously break the law as adults, if you've got kids that are established here and we don't want to split families, give those parents, give those adults a way to stay here and work legally, to do it legally and work.
Pay taxes.
You don't get a path to citizenship, but
so
your children do.
Advantage of.
Yeah, your children do.
People that are here illegally are worried and and there's
scared to
bad
death,
people,
and they shouldn't
and
be.
there's bad people that take advantage of that.
You better believe it. You better believe it.
You either do what I tell you, or I'm going to call somebody. And then they,
exactly. And
they're going to work for $3 an hour.
And that does happen, guys.
Yes.
Everybody thinks, oh, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I don't know. There's got to be a way to fix this stuff. And that really was a passion for me, and the reason why I did that crazy run for Congress. I still to this day try to figure out what was the Lord doing with that. But I believe He was opening the door to where He's got my husband and I now. We've got Mark and I now. But nonetheless, I say all this to say, when you hear about these opportunities in your church to go and do mission work, I need to get Susie Allen here because she and her husband, they go somewhere in Africa, and I want to go with them. They've been going. I see that from Lee Marie. We're going to talk about it. But
we've been just saying hello for 45 minutes.
Well, we have been saying hello. We've been talking about everything. I mean, I wanted to talk about the mission trip to Mexico and encourage people to get outside their comfort zone, get outside your comfort zone and get involved in mission work. Start locally. There's all kinds of missions you can be involved in here. But if you get an opportunity to step outside the borders of America and go and serve these people who I guarantee you, like my friend Magdalena said, are wondering, do they even know we're here? They need us. And I know we have, some difficult things to overcome with some of these very corrupt governments to try to get to them, but we can't stop trying. We cannot stop trying. As as it has been said of our country, we are the shining light on the hill. And I could get into some theological reasonings, theological explanations about what that really means from Scripture. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But that's a real interesting study, the city on the hill and what that means from Scripture. And I know that's been made famous by Reagan. But man, there's some backstory to the original intent of what that Scripture means that will blow your mind. But that's for another time. What we need to talk about right now, though, I do need to stop and talk about my sponsor, Barry and Rebecca Richards, for today. I want to remind you of my other two sponsors. They're not plugged in today, but Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market. You might be able to go by there and still get some beef. They cut beef this week. And don't forget to go by the UPS store, not just your Amazon drop-off point. They've got printing. They've got notaries. They've got mailboxes you can get. Everything you want, just great places to visit. Now, remember, too, bouncing back over to Bernard Farms, they're not open on Mondays and Sundays right now. So they're not open Mondays and Sundays, but you can go by Tuesday through Friday and Saturday, but they've just cut back their hours a little bit because of the season. They're in harvest time, and they're dealing with tobacco and all that kind of stuff, and kids starting school, so they have to adjust their hours. But get by there and see them, and again, that beef case will be empty quick if it isn't already, but they've always got all kinds of great pork cuts and things that they grow and process themselves. It's awesome. So Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market, UPS store, a couple of other sponsors for one street over, but again, our longest running full-time sponsor, Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. Go and check out their social media post, their most recent one, and see their little smart car that they bought for the city of Cross Plains. And they donated it.
The one that he was driving around.
Oh, so they switched. No, I don't know. I'll have to ask Barry if that's I think it's a different one.
No, it looks like the one that they had.
But they've had, I think they still have both.
Do they really?
We'll talk to him. But anyway,
I need that vehicle up at school. So
that would be a lot of fun for school for the criminal justice program.
Class, yes.
But we actually have a picture of Mark when we were down in Ensenada, standing next to one of these little cars.
It's
that was the
smaller than
the Policia down in Ensenada. Is great. We got a great picture that we've got to get up in his classroom eventually. And but anyway,
that I could wear.
Yeah, it's truly. And but the police of Cross Plains have been blessed with a donation from Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty, and that just goes to show how involved they are in the community. But it was kind of it was a thank you to say how happy they are to have been a part of the Cross Plains community for 30 years. They are Cross Plainians, even though, like me, they came originally from Kentucky. This is their home. They're part of the Robertson County community, Cross Plainians, and they specialize in Robertson County properties, but they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky because of their diverse background. In fact, they originally came from Kentucky. They understand the whole picture. So whether you're buying or selling, if you want to be a realtor, whatever side of the table you're sitting on, or maybe you want to be the leader at the table, they can help you out. Exit's a great team to work with. It's the one that Rebecca did a lot of research before she found a team that she wanted to hang her hat with when she first went into real estate. And she's been at this a long time, one of the first in the area to be a seniors real estate specialist. But she wanted a company that would support everything she needed to be successful, and wow, has she been. And so is Barry. He's the broker here in Springfield. She's the agent up in White House that are the combo that brings you Exit Prime Realty. If you want to know more, you want a great team, you can find them on social media. They have unique web pages and social media pages. Just Barry Richards, Exit Prime Realty, Rebecca Richards, Exit Prime Realty, or you can give Rebecca a call directly at 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, or go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or buy BUYRobertsonCounty.com. Let them know U-Turn sent you. And Lee Marie will get me if I don't mention this concert. It is Saturday, 6:30, the church at Grace Park Sanctuary. It's music by Dakota Bletcher and Friends, and it's benefiting Drew Bletcher's short film project, Breakout, which is going to be done locally. And if you want to donate, you can go to breakoutshortfilm.com. But this is a cool thing. I met this young man. Very excited for him. He got to do an internship at Chosen, but this Christian concert is going to be happening again the 9th, which is Saturday night, right? Is that the 9th? Is that the same night as our Recovery Fest? I think it is. But you can do everything. You don't have to just do one thing, guys. You can go to everything. But it is August 9th, 6:30 p.m., the church at Grace Park Sanctuary, and it's music by Dakota Bletcher and Friends, and it's benefiting Drew Bletcher's short film project, Breakout. So you're going to want to be a part of that, and I hope you can check that out. And I also hope that you'll get over and check out what we're going to be doing at Recovery Fest, because they've asked me to MC it, and I'm so excited. I think that's going to be so much fun. I love doing stuff like that. I've done that forever, through my radio background. So this is our second annual one. It is this weekend. It is from 5 to 9 p.m., August 9th. And it is at the Robertson County Fairgrounds. We're going to have vendors, musicians, speakers, food, family-friendly activities. You're going to have a Dunkin' booth there. You can dunk Judge Perry. You can dunk Megan as well, because she is the director of the Recovery Court. They just, it's one of those love-hate things when it comes to Megan and Judge Perry, because when they're going through this stuff, they have to hold their feet to the fire. And it can be tough sometimes. So they're just great folks, but they're gonna be taking turns in the Dunkin' booth. We got a raffle that you'll get a free ticket if you step into the event. So if you come, you're going to get a free ticket. But we also have other sponsors. We've got Stuart Williams Furniture has got a donation for us. Really nice recliner. They're donating. We've got some gift cards, things like that. And rumor has it that we have a guitar from Jelly Roll. If any of the Leanne Morgan family are out there, we would love for y'all to donate something from Leanne, because, oh my goodness, she's a superstar now. And if any of the Leanne Morgan crew are around, we would love for y'all to donate something to the Recovery Fest raffle because it helps to support all the programs of recovery here in Robeson County that are facilitated through the Recovery Court. So come be a part of this. This is all happening tomorrow night. I'll be there. MCing the event, but it's from 5 to 9 at the fairgrounds. Another thing that I want to just tag in on real quick is you need to register for Be the Light, the 5K run, Janie Grace Moss Memorial Run that is happening on the, it's on her birthday on August 21st. And if you don't know this story, this precious girl, beautiful precious girl, she was running and collapsed and died. And this is one of our Good Pasture kids. My kids are Good Pasture alum. I actually taught at Good Pasture a couple of years. But this is going to fund the scholarship in her name and just an amazing opportunity. But it'll be 7 a.m. at Moss Wright Park, August 23rd. Please try to go and be a part of this and just love on this family. This is one of the things, one of the reasons I wanted to mention this is because, you know, Mark and I talked about how that things like our mission trip to Mexico have gotten us through a struggling time for us this summer. And the details don't matter, but we've been going through some really big challenges this summer. I told y'all about getting scammed. Well, that is just, you know, that's a piece of it, but that's not, honestly, I think a lot of the things that happened with the scam that I got pulled into, part of that was the distraction of what we're going through. And there's some other nuances to that played into that. So I think they kind of overlap a little bit. But it's been hard. It's been a hard summer. But as we've been dealing with our difficult summer, we keep going back to, I'll walk this walk anytime as long as I don't have to walk the kind of walk that Janie Grace's family is having to walk. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
To lose a young one like that.
Can't imagine. My cousin lost her daughter in a car accident. Can't imagine. The kids that were swept away down in I can't even fathom.
The flood, yeah.
Can't even fathom what they're going through. So while I know God will get you through it, I don't know how you get through it without God. I don't know how you do. And I say all of the things we've been saying today, getting involved in missions, getting involved in your community, because guys, when trials come, and trials will come, I pray to God they're not heavy ones like, you know, ones we just mentioned. I pray to God that never happens for any of you. Beg God every day that never happens for us. But trials like we're walking through, oh, they're going to come. They're going to come. And when they do, if you do not have a spiritual family to lean on, if you do not know how to get outside yourself and serve others so you can find that peace that transcends all understanding to guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus, you may not get through it in the way that you want to. Would that be a fair thing?
Yes.
'Cause it's a struggle. Because, I mean, I don't care how prepared you are and how strong your spiritual foundation is, you're still going to have depressed days. We've had some days that just we get real depressed, and I can't imagine what these ones that are going through this tragedy, heart loss of these loved ones. I've met several people who have lost kids, and years later just still I don't think you would never get over it. I share the story that I got from my sweet friend Ruth Ann Rowland. Oh, God bless you, sweet girl. When they lost little Patrick, he was the same age as Jedediah, and Patrick died at daycare. Of SIDS. He just didn't wake up. And the grief of those of us who had children, and there's a child about the same, they're also friends with Susan and Phil Valentine, and they had a child about the same age as well. Man, we grieved because we could hold our kids in our arms and realize what they were going through, and our hearts just broke for them. And I remember going to the memorial, and Ruth Ann was there. And number one, I couldn't believe she was standing on 2 feet, that she just wasn't crumpled in a chair and people, you know, just unable to even stand. And I said, how are you getting through this? She goes, I don't know. You know, that peace that transcends all understanding. She says, but my pastor told me, said that life is, you know, you hear that analogy that life is like a river, right? And it flows along. And as it flows, things are constantly dropping into it. You have a little pebble that'll cause a ripple. Sometimes you have a big old log that'll fall in and it'll cause a bigger ripple. You know, we're dealing with pretty big ripple right now. Nothing, terrible, but pretty big ripple. And you have those things, but it finally calms down and things move on, just like it never happened. You learn from it, but it goes on. But every now and then, something will break away and fall into that life's river that literally threatens to completely stop it forever. And I think the loss of loved ones has to be that, and that's what she was saying when they lost Patrick. That falls into it, and you think it's just never going to move again. But even those big boulders, the river of life is so powerful that it'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing past it, and eventually it'll start flowing. It'll continue. It never quit flowing. It maybe was a trickle, but it never quit flowing. But it'll start flowing, and it'll start flowing, and it'll start getting stronger and stronger. The boulder's always there, never leaves you, but the edge is smooth. And those are the kinds of things that your faith family walk you through. Your life of service walks you through and gets you through. So, guys, I say all of this to just say, on this Faith Friday, find a place to connect. Find a body to be a part of. Find your faith community, because if you don't, when troubles come, and they will come, you might just find a boulder dropping into your river that will prevent it from moving. And we don't even want to think about those kinds of things. But there is strength in community. There's hope in community. There's peace in serving and all those things. Any parting thoughts, my dear husband? Huh? Would you just say amen to that?
Amen to all of that.
I think, it'd be really interesting is for us to go and look at the transcript and see how many words I used today versus how many you used. You know it. Because when I told my husband, I said, hey, we're going to come in and talk about Mexico. He knew what I really meant is we're going to come in and we're going to talk about Mexico, and I'm going to ask you a few questions and you'll say a little bit, but you're going to be my bouncing. You're kind of like talk show hosts. A lot of times like to have that sidekick that's just there every now and then when they just need affirmation of what they're saying.
That's me.
So you served as my affirmation today. Thank you, darling. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope this meant something to you. It did to me. And I just wanted to share with y'all Mexico and just the peace that transcends all understanding, guarding our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus, y'all. That's what we live for, and that's what we lean into. And I hope you do the same. And if you're not doing that, find a body of believers to be a part of, and you will see that come your way as well. This is 1100 WSGI. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Join us Monday for History Monday with my brother, Bill Jones. And thank you again, Bill, for joining us yesterday at the last minute. And go check out his articles in The Connection. He's writing in The Connection again, and it's all good. I started reading some of it last night. You're so good, Bill. Thank you for doing that. And you can join us for Bill Jones Monday, once again, on 1100 WSGI. God bless. Have a great weekend, y'all.
Well, the sun's gonna come up in the morning, and the joy of the Lord's gonna rise with the dawn, and he'll write mercy into your story. The sun's gonna come up in the morning. Sun's gonna come up in the morning.